planet's climate and biota and leave a ruined world to future generation is to keep doing exactly what we are doing today. This is a message. We have to do something. We have to change something more fundamentally. And here I use philosophy of science as an input. So in our interpretation of ecological economics, a philosophy of science introduction is of the greatest importance. And here I only focus upon two contributors. The first one is Imre Lakatos. He's a Hungarian philosopher. And he tried to combine and discuss the difference between Karl Popper and falsification and Thomas Kuhn and his theory of the structure of scientific revolutions, the paradigm theory. Imre Lakatos said every research project, every program, economic program, have a hardcore and a protective belt. The hardcore consists of theories, concepts, preconditions that are taken for granted, and questioning without threatening the whole research program. And that was what I felt when I asked this question at the Norwegian School of Economics. They felt that something in the hardcore was threatened. When you ask about growth, you ask about competition, you ask about strategic planning and all these things. So that are hardcore in our economic system. Growth, strategic planning, competition, and so on. The protective belt, according to Lakatos, could be changed to save the hardcore. To save the hardcore, we can make small changes in the protective belt. Theories and concepts that can be changed in order to protect the hardcore. An example, when we talk about circular economy today, someone said this is the solution. If you see, take a look at the definition from Ken Webster. A circular economy is led by business for a profit within the rules of the game, without disturbing the hardcore. Higher competitiveness, higher resource security, and material efficiency. So you see, this is a kind of solution that is based upon our existing economic system. And if we accept that the system is the problem, this is no solution, but this is a kind of hiding the problems. And you can find it in many different contexts. We are in many different research programs, amongst others, sharing economy with the university in Oslo. And we come up with the same impression here. It could be a good thing, but it could also be part of the existing system. So in other words, when we change from growth, the hardcore, we say we have some problems today with growth, okay, then we say green growth. And when we have green growth, everything is okay. But the problem is growth, not the color of it. And here is a more important person concerning philosophy of science, Paul Feyerabend. He says, to reach any new understanding, we have to ask questions that challenge and contradict well-established theories. So we have to ask questions to the established theories. We have to ask questions to things that normal people do not think is problematic at all. The consistence condition demanding that new hypotheses are consistent with accepted theories serves to keep the older theories in place. And here I ask students, when you meet your supervisor, what will he or she say when you have a research problem? They say you must put it into a context of theory, accepted theories. Do you agree? Accepted theories, a theory chapter, where you put your research question in. And then Feyerabend says, then there are no possibilities to come up with new knowledge. And what kind of people are checking that the students are doing it? It's called censors, a censor. We don't like countries with censure. What is it in English? Censure. Censor. But at the university we have a whole lot of people censoring students not go outside the paradigm. So we have, according to Paul Feyerabend and our own experience, a system that tries to keep students within the established way of thinking. Success, and now Feyerabend becomes very interesting because he has a historical perspective here. He said that every big breakthrough in science come from persons that ask new questions. So if you read a book of a history of philosophy, nobody in that book is presented as a person that meant absolutely the same as all the others in his time. Everybody has a new question. So therefore we must be brave and ask new questions. That is the main thing here. Erik Fromm, the humanistic psychologist, says in 1955, reform can be radical, that is going to its roots, or it can be superficial, trying to patch up systems without touching the causes. Exactly the same thing, and that is, in my opinion, the green shift and green economy and all these things. That is we try to hide problems behind new concepts without going into the real, into the hardcore. Okay, and then some problems with the picture here. But okay, then I find inspiration in another Hungarian, this time a sociologist, Karl Mannheim. Karl Mannheim published a book in 1936 where he distinguished between ideology and utopia. And ideology is here and now, and utopia is what could be. Or to use Aristotle's concept, actuality and potentiality. So here we say, and Karl Mannheim point, we are in a situation, in an actual situation. In every situation there is a potential for development. A potential for development. So our challenge is to find our own potential and the potential for the society. So ideology describes the presence from inside, is rooted in the ideas of the dominant social groups, refers to accepted norms and values, and justifies authorities. In other words, what philosophers call a well-ordered society. And that is good. But the problem is, according to Karl Mannheim, and later Paul Ricoeur, he published a book with the same title, Ideology and Utopia, in 1986, 50 years later after Karl Mannheim. And he says, without utopia, ideology becomes static. So we must have an idea about how the future could be, might be. We have to develop utopian thinking. So therefore, at the Center for Ecological Economics in Bodø, we travel all around the whole Norway and arrange utopian workshops in small communities where people are allowed to give a picture of their own society in 10, 20, 30 years into the future. And this is very successful because when you paint a picture of a society you want to live in, then you start doing things. If you wait till the politicians or the leaders in the economy come up with the good solutions, you do nothing. You are waiting for solutions. But everybody have a potential and everybody wants to do something with it. So utopian workshops, that's the thing. Utopia understands the present from outside. First time utopia was mentioned was Thomas More in 1516. He published a book called Utopia. And he defined utopia as another place. It's nothing special, it's another place. To understand the society we're living in, we have to put ourselves outside. It's somewhere else, geared towards the future, should not be realized, but we can only work in that direction. It's just like the rainbow. It's somewhere in front, you never reach it. So we have to work with utopian thinking all the time. It's no rest here. And then we can say that we have, in that book, I have presented more than 40 different contributors to ecological economics during the last 100 years, men, women from all parts of the world, Asia, Africa, America, North and South, Europe. And they have something in common, all these people. All these people have something in common, and the main thing they have in common is the change from having economy as the frame of reference to having ecology or ecosystems as the frame of reference. Today we say it's smart, it's rational to do things that is economic. All contributors in what we can call ecological economics say it's smart to do what is in accordance with the ecosystems. So we have to learn from nature, in other words. So, in the dominating ideology, economics or economy is the context for interpretation, and the economic man is the definition. Concerning dialogue, I found this sentence: we must learn to suspend and question our assumption and be open to new ways of seeing and understanding. We see everything through a lens, and this lens is the first dominating ideology. So we have to take a look at the lens that we use to understand the world we're living in. That's the point here. Okay, and then is basic income ideology or utopia? Basic income breaks with the dominant view ideology that consumption is linked to work. Basic income assumes that someone has the will and courage to ask critical questions. Feuerarbeit. If to take a step further, we have to ask critical questions, we have to be unpopular in the establishment. And then we found two interesting contributors in ecological economics saying these things. Fritz Schumacher, Otto Schreimer, asked critical questions about the relationship between work and wages. Development depends on someone's ability to break the established thought patterns. Basic income breaks with the idea of money for life's stay is linked to wage labor. And this idea, I think, comes from the Bible. Do you agree? It says something about you have to work not only hard, but extremely hard to have the daily food. So here we have to get rid of that way of thinking and say, it's no natural connection between these things. All kinds of research found that the motivation is much better if you are motivated by other things than money. So maybe we will do better work if you are motivated by another cause than the possibility to earn more money. Hundertwasser, a great inspiration. I was in Vienna 2 weeks ago and visited his museums and the people working with his ideas. Friedensreich Hundertwasser, Austrian artist, architect, eco-philosopher. He says something very interesting. What would happen if people, instead of asking for more and more, would ask for less and less? They would be happier, would be healthier, think that would be an interesting experiment. So if you come the next year for discussions for higher wages, we say we want to lower 10% lower this year. What will people say then? If you have a political party saying that, is it possible? I don't know. It is possible, absolutely, but will someone do it? That's the question. Hundertwasser says this is interesting. Okay. Deep changes on different levels. Now we come to a kind of conclusion here. First of all, it's very important to reflect on the world, how you understand the world we're living in. So all the courses we have in ecological economics and philosophy, on bachelor level, on master level, on PhD level, we start with this question: how do you understand the world we're living in? The next thing is that how we understand the world we're living in has influence on how we define the system we're living in. And practice is connected to the system. And image of man, rationality, the individual consciousness is also connected here. Today, in green economy, we go directly to practice and say, you must be environmentally responsible and socially responsible. CSR, environmental responsibility, and all these things that we teach in business schools all over the world. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. Very small changes. And why? And I think the reason is we say to people in practice, change your activities without asking questions to the systems and without asking questions to the rationality, the definition of rationality. So if you think as an economic man and you have an atomistic competitive system, then it is almost impossible to change practice. But if you accept that we have to change worldview from a mechanistic to an organic way of thinking, then the system will be based upon cooperative networks, because that is how nature is working, according to Kropotkin and Reclus in 1860. 1860. 150 years ago, they said this is the way we have to develop the economy. We have to change from the economic man to the ecological man. And here we have a very interesting person in Norway, philosopher Arne Næss, deep ecology. Many sources to dig into. And then practice will change. Strategy, what is that? Strategy is to make a plan to beat your enemies. It's come from the military vocabulary. Imported by marketing people saying it is exactly the same situation on the market. We have to beat our enemies and we must make a plan. And that is called a strategy. A German professor in marketing, Waldemar Hoffenbach, said in the 1970s that we must leave this concept strategy and start talking about partnership approach. We are partners on the market. And this is very easy to understand for people in local societies in Norway and other places. Because they know that we are integrated and we can help each other to make a living and to make a good living economy. Is basic income relevant today? Increasing gap between rich and poor, increasing automatization, robotization, fewer jobs, increasing bureaucracy. Yeah, that is said earlier. This is a picture from Hundertwasser, talking about a living city. This picture is very different from pictures of smart cities. In Bodø, everybody talk about the smart city. We should be the smartest cities in Europe, they say. Okay? And what kind of pictures do they have from Dubai? All these strange buildings, that is smart city. Completely without any connection to living people or living things at all. But this is a living city, according to Hundertwasser. So go to Vienna and visit his museums. Arguments for another consequence: less working time, more time for other activities. And that is exactly what Thomas More said in 1516. We should not work more than 6 hours a day because we must have time to develop our whole person, our cultural part of it, and emotions and everything. If we work more than 6 hours a day, then we will be one dimension. And we know the one-dimensional man, Marcuse, the philosopher. So we see, long history here, long time back ago they say, okay, we have to change something. Individuals and families with enough money to provide good standard of living is the same as we heard earlier, so no point in repeating that. I agree completely in everything. Social security for all, poverty is the mother of revolution and crime. Who said that? Plato, 2,300 years ago. It's not a new thing. You see. And here is the book. And here is the what should I say? Some of all these 40 different contributors that I describe in this book, they have something in common. And these are these examples are illustrating what ecological economic could be in practice. Material consumption minimized, maximizing quality of life. To be rather than to have. To be rather than to have. From Erik Fromm. Organization that promotes collaboration for the common good. Self-organized, locally based dynamic networks. And where does this idea come from? Anarchism. Philosophy of anarchistic philosophy. The main thing in the good society is local-based networks based upon cooperation. Anarchism is criticized for one thing: they have a positive view of human beings. People today say we are bad, so we have to have a military and police and everything to control the situation. And the anarchists said the problem is the police and all the things that make us, all these control systems that we have at the universities today with rundskriv, but I don't know the English word. We have rundskriv all the time. You cannot do anything without being controlled. So in other words, positive view of man, self-organized, locally based dynamic networks, food systems that take care of the soil, plants, animals and humans, local good for local markets. Thomas More, 1516, the good life in the good society, local produced food, he said. And wine, too, he mentioned. Decentralized circuit solution for all materials. And what is the problem today? They reuse, repair, recycle. Yeah, in a way. I participate in a project in Oslo where they recycling in plastic, and they say only 10% of the plastic bottles that we deliver at the shops or are recirculated. 90% disappear somewhere. They do not know where. Very strange. I thought that all these bottles were in a safe system. No. The next problem here is reduce. We have built a reprocessing system that is based upon increased amount of waste. So today we have not enough waste in Norway to fill up our burning, where they burn the waste and make energy of it. So we import waste from Germany and England to fill up these big systems. And we ask people in technology, is it possible to build small, decentralized units? Yes, it's possible. Why don't you do it? It's not profitable enough for people investing. They want big units, big money. So it's possible, but they do not want to make it because the system says that rationality is maximizing profits. Small-scale technology and communities characterized by diversity. And now I think we are coming to the end. In the coming decades, the survival of humanity will depend on our ability to understand the basic principles of ecology and to develop and practice an economic system accordingly. In other words, learn from nature. We must realize that we never will find solutions to our current challenges using the old maps, market economy, capitalism, and all these things, old systems. To do more than reducing negative symptoms, we must change our worldview. No? Therefore, it's very interesting that they want to get rid of examen philosophical, the introductory courses in philosophy, because they are not useful for anything, they say. But I say maybe that is the most useful course you have, because here you discuss these things. You discuss the changes in how we understand the world we're living in, from the Greek Antique and up till today. And there have been changes many, many times. So it's not a strange idea to think that we will have a new change. And we are living in such times now, I think. We argue that the only valid purpose of the economy is to serve the life processes in all kinds of social and ecological systems. And then Ruth Levitas, professor in sociology in England, leading a center for utopian research. She said, if you come up in trouble talking about utopia, and people say you are talking about nonsense, the things that could not happen, and strange, and you are far out, here is the answer. Say this sentence, and they will shut down all criticism. Utopia is not about the impossible. What is really impossible is to carry on as we are. And everybody understands that. So therefore, utopia is less impossible than to go on in the same direction as we are now. And that was all.